This time last week, I set out for a weekend getaway, and much to my surprise, I drove straight into an EF2 tornado. I'm sure all of you remember the Washington tornado of November 2013. This wasn't nearly as severe, but because of the size of the town, the damage was just as devastating. Being from Peoria, Illinois, just minutes from Washington, I'm very familiar to the complete devastation that a tornado can cause. Cameron, Illinois is a typical small community that the devastation experienced there, along with the lack of federal assistance, proves why the H.R. 1471 Act is so important to pass. Now I'll explain to you what the Act is and the different reasons why it will level the playing field for small communities to receive federal assistance when disaster strikes. First, let me give you a little background on the small town Cameron that was affected the most last Thursday night. Located in Warren County, Cameron, Illinois has a population of approximately 400 people, so you can imagine how small it really is. The size of the town is so important in this situation because it determines if the town can actually qualify for federal aid. Cameron has so few of people that you can imagine the amount of houses being very low as well. Compared to other towns with thousands of people like Washington, Illinois, 50 homes would be a small proportion of the total homes located there, but in Cameron, 50 is a vast majority of the homes. During this event, at least 50 homes were actually damaged by the tornado, leaving the town completely devastated. There were 6 confirmed tornadoes that touched down in western Illinois that night, as stated by the National Weather Service. There were wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour recorded, with up to 14.5 inches of rainfall in that short period of time. Additional to the damage of the homes the families had, the town's warning siren was completely destroyed as well. Cameron has on record that the last tornado to go through this town was in 1989, but this last storm was recorded was by far much worse in strength and devastation. Although the damage to the town seems too extensive to rebuild on their own, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, seems to think different. Federal assistance requires a number of different criteria for a town to fit into a disaster area. In order to be granted aid, there is a guideline FEMA follows to determine eligibility. The requirements to determine whether a town fits the criteria or not is broken down into 4 categories: applicants, facility, work, and cost. Different types of applicants are eligible. The 4 types are state government agencies, local governments and special districts, private nonprofit organizations, and different federal recognized tribes. The facilities that are eligible are relatively any building, works, system, or equipment that is manufactured, or any maintained natural feature that is owned by an eligible applicant. The 2 types of eligible work are emergency work and permanent work. Emergency work is either categorized as debris removal or emergency protective measures. Permanent work is the repair of roads and bridges, water control facilities, buildings and equipment, utilities, or recreational facilities. The last eligible category is determining reasonable costs for the total repairs. In order to determine this number, some things are taken into consideration, like the use of historical documentation for similar work, average costs for similar work in the area, and published unit costs from national cost databases. Once the eligibility requirements are determined, FEMA will then figure out what towns are greatly in need of the assistance. This is where small communities can get overlooked because they can fall short in one or more of the 4 categories. For Illinois counties to receive the FEMA assistance, the damages would have to be documented as at least $17.8 million in cost. In order to get rid of the issue of FEMA overlooking the smaller communities completely, Congress needs a solution that will make receiving a fair game for aid a fair game for everyone. The solution to this issue is H.R. 1471, the FEMA Disaster Assistance Reform Act of 2015. If Congress can pass this act, small communities will finally have the fair help with their disaster recovery problems they deserve. The bill is going to do the following: assess trends in disaster losses, provide FEMA additional direction for key component programs and speed up recovery, reauthorize emergency management grants, including policy changes that result in a more effective means of assistance. This legislation is important to pass to decrease the likelihood of the reoccurrence of similar issues across the country. Cameron, Illinois is a typical small community that the devastation experienced there, along with the lack of federal assistance, proves why the H.R. 1471 Act is so important to pass. This is becoming increasingly important with all of the tornadoes this area has experienced lately. Communities have to spend their own money to clean up the debris and financially are not able to fund this on their own. That is why the passing of this act could help rebuild these communities faster than they would be able to on their own. The next time you are driving through any small town, remember how great of an impact a natural disaster is and how devastating waiting for months or years for funding can be to a community.